Well, I'm really excited about this next segment because there are fewer bigger names or more successful people in the history of WA basketball. What time is it? It's Trevor time.
I wake up every morning trying to get our team playing the best and win a championship. We're playing terrific team basketball. That's what championships are made of. We're preparing for a grand final. Normally when you play the right way, good things happen. We'll fight tooth and nail. We're going to do everything we can to make sure that trophy comes here.
Yes, 5-time NBL championship winning coach Trevor Gleeson is joining the Dribble podcast this season. Trev, thanks for joining us. Welcome.
No worries. I didn't realise you had the recordings, mate. I thought it was just one and done, but they come back.
I do come back. You repeat yourself over and over again.
There you
I was looking for Wildcats basketball and somehow I couldn't find that in there when I was searching for things the other day. But let's get this straight right from the start for you. Like I spoke to you at the start of the year and you were adamant that you wouldn't be coaching this year. You're still contracted to Toronto. You're doing a lot of corporate work. You're doing a lot of time with the family, doing some media stuff as well and doing some clinics. So for people out there who are thinking Trev's looking for a job, you're not looking for a job, are you?
Yeah, not this year. I will coach again, and I would like to finish my career in the NBL, but that's just not right at the moment. Like you said, I'm under contract with Toronto until July next year. And right now, I've just spent 2 years in the snow finding out my wardrobe wasn't enough, and I'm enjoying this hot weather and enjoy some family time with my kids and wife. So I am certainly not looking for a position at the moment.
And for anyone who has forgotten, Trev's first captain at Townsville was John Riley. So it's not like he's after that job. Definitely there's a relationship there. So he's here to provide insight and expertise into what's going on within the league. And the Wildcats are obviously one of the biggest things going on in the league from a WA perspective. So we'll start with them and Bryce Cotton. He's been targeted heavily by teams in the first 5 games, held to 7 points by South East Melbourne and 11 points by Melbourne United. When you watch his games, if you're pulling together a film review of the first 5 games and how the Wildcats are playing and how he's being used, what stands out to you about the way Bryce Cotton is being used in this current team?
I watched Friday night against Melbourne United. And Melbourne United probably got the best defensive guard backcourt in the NBL, with Deladova and Shea Ely. And they were doing a tag team with him. And it's no secret game plans for opposition is to let everybody else shoot the ball except for Bryce. They try to take the ball out of his hands, and that's aggressive trap, aggressive denials, aggressive up the lanes and trapping him and making it hard for him. Bryce has seen all that in the past, and it's really the counters that you got to get ready for. If they're taking the ball out of his hands, what's the next option? And that was something that we were very mindful of with our selection of imports, that we had Casey Prather here first before Bryce, and then it was Tariko White. We had JP Tokuto wasn't a good fit with Bryce because they were trapping Bryce and JP couldn't shoot from the perimeter. So we were adamant we needed another perimeter guy because teams were taking the ball out of Bryce's hands. And he's used to that. And coming back through what I've seen, he's probably better off doing a little bit more catch and shoot. Like he has 2 sets of skills, which is very rare. He can create his own shot off the dribble, and he can catch and shoot. Normally when you get imports into Australia in the NBL, they can only do 1 set really well, either catch and shoot, and they're limited with their drive and then finish in the lane. And that's what makes Bryce so special. So I think there's a lot more catch and shoot movement off the ball that he could create because we know he can shoot the ball, and it's just getting that opportunities. So
the stats are really interesting. He's played more than 200 games. He's been restricted to 12 points 20 times in his career, 12 points or less. And the Wildcats have an 8-12 record when that happens. So we all know the importance of him scoring. He's not getting as many shots this year either. So is it a matter of getting the guys who don't know him very well, the Jordan Ushers, this Will Alex Sars, Keanu Pinders, all these guys, to understand the importance of him getting more shots, more scores, because historically that's what gets his team wins? Yeah, well,
it's pretty much a pecking order. Well, what we used to do is make sure Bryce got the double 1 shots, and then it was a pecking order. Then Tariko will get next, and Nick Kay next, and then we'll share the rest of them. But here as a focal point, And from the other night, I just seen a few times where Wildcats did get the offensive rebound, and it could have been a quick kick out. And that's the easiest shot, 3-point shot that you can, because Bryce will get into the lane and drive and make a basketball play. He's not selfish that he'll just shoot it. He'll make the basketball play. If the shot's not there, he'll pass the ball. But one thing that he's really good at is relocating to the perimeter. And he did that a couple of times, and the ball wasn't coming to him. And it's the same with like a Chris Golding at Melbourne. And everyone last week was saying, he only shot 7 points, and he hit 3 threes the week before and didn't shoot it again the second half. The ball has got to move. If you're a shooter, the ball has got to move. And if the ball doesn't move and you're a shooter and a scorer, you're going to get limited opportunities. So if the ball sticks in people's hands, if like Melbourne, if they don't share the ball around, and Chris is not going to see it. But once that ball starts moving and starts flicking around, that's when shooters light up and their eyes get big, because they know they're going to get open looks. And I think that's something probably Bryce is aware of.
So we saw him dish off to Alex Sarr for those 2 match-winning points earlier on in the season. Is that a lesson for everyone, that if Bryce is prepared to pass the ball, everyone else should be flinging the ball around too?
Look, Bryce is an unbelievable player, and he doesn't let his ego get in the way. So those 2 plays, he could have quite easily shot the ball on both of those occasions, and no one would have said anything. It's because it's Bryce, it's the best player, and go down the lane, and that's what we want. But he's made a basketball play. The first one was a great pass out to him. That was a basketball play, and Sarr hit the 3. So the next play to do it again, and he waited a little bit longer just so the defense was covering him. So that's the kind of player he is. He doesn't care if he gets the score or not. What he's after is getting the team winning. I don't think it's reciprocated all the way, because there's been a few other times there's been a kick out, and if you've got Bryce open on the 3-point line, any shooter, the same with Chris Golding. If you've got an open shooter, that pass has got to go to him. And that's what you want, your best player shooting uncontested shots. That's how you're going to win.
Another player who's been talked about a bit recently is Jesse Wagstaff. Game number 450 for him this week. We spoke to him earlier on in this podcast, which was terrific. How do you see his role at the moment? He's starting, he's coming off the bench, he's starting again. Like, what makes him the great player that he is, and how's he best utilised?
Did you talk about his haircuts?
I didn't ask him about his haircuts. I've asked him about that in the past. He's had some rippers.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of them. So congratulations, Jesse. 450 is absolutely brilliant. I think it's the second most, just behind Ricky Grace at the Wildcats. Yeah, and that's where the coaching staff have got to work out what his role is on the team. So he didn't play for 2 games and then started last game. So they have to work out what role he is valuable for the team. In my time, Jesse was better coming off the bench. He was like the last big off the bench towards the end of the first quarter. And then the second quarter, I would try to start Damo, Jesse, and Greg Hyatt, because they played great basketball together. They weren't our rock stars of scoring, but they just played teamwork and hustle, and all of a sudden they get on a roll, and then you put the support cast around him. So it's probably what group does he work with? Does he work best with Sarr, where Sarr's on the inside and Jesse can pop, or does he work better with Pinder, where Pinder can be around the basket and Jesse can stretch the floor and with the kick out 3? So that's something that they got to come up with and be happy with. But they're still trying to tinker around with that, I think, at the moment, especially with the injuries.
You mentioned during the game on Friday night, there was a massive moment. 3:39 remaining, Melbourne led 74-70, and the Wildcats thought the ref had made a mistake when the ball went out of play, and everyone went to John Rillie and said, call for a review. And before we knew it, the ball was back in play, and Ian Clark nails the 3. The system of coaching challenges wasn't in place for your time here, except for the NBL Cup. How do you see it? Should players be going to the coaches? Should coaches be saying, leave it alone and we'll call it ourselves? What's a system that works to avoid confusion and players losing concentration?
Well, yeah, that was a big moment. But there was a number of them that were going to complain about the call and complain about the review. That's number one. You can't stop playing. You play to the whistle, and no matter if it's good or bad, and he's been talking about good or bad, but you got to play to the whistle or the ball's in the basket, and that you keep playing. And you talk to the coach, they make a decision, and you move on. I thought they weren't ready at that situation. The ball came in quick and they weren't in correct position, and then they got caught out with their rotations, and Ian Clark hit a 3. But with the challenges, obviously, if it's as a coach, you will try to leave the challenges late as possible in the game. If there's a game-deciding call that you can say, hey, put up the red flag and say review that. Or if it's Bryce Cotton's 5th foul. Out of the ones, you got to roll with a few of them during the course of the game to use it early and lose it, and then you haven't got it. And most of the time, the players aren't correct when they, hey, coach, I didn't touch it. Yes, you did. Or they'll complain about a foul and say, I'll review it. Then you watch the replay and they foul the hell out of them. So you got to take it with a little bit of pinch of salt, but you got to play the whistle first and foremost, and then you got the challenge after that.
The timeout, how important is that timeout? Because the stats at the moment say that coaches have been successful 36% of the time this year on foul challenges. They've been 100% correct on the out-of-bounds calls. World Cup cricket at the moment, they're going at 24% from the players who are reviewing things, but they don't get to see the vision straight up, whereas the assistant coaches do in the NBL. Like 36% isn't a great number. So is the timeout more important than the foul call, do you feel, in most situations?
Yeah, look, it depends. The timeout for me was either we aren't playing well and we need to regroup, or we need to make an adjustment, or to stop the rhythm of the game. If the other team scored 2 threes or 2 layups, or just to stop the rhythm of the game, because basketball is a game of flows. You know, normally there's 3 big runs in the game, and if you can control 2 of them, you're going to win. But I use that timeout to stop the flow, or if we have to reset. Timeouts, I would rather go into the locker room in the game with the timeout still in my hand, just in case there's 0.4 of a second left, then I can have a timeout and advance it. And I think we did that one time down in Hobart when Bryce hit a unbelievable shot to send it into overtime. So, yeah, the timeouts are important to set that up. And that surprises me with how low percentage the challenges are. And I tell you, whoever's on the video, that's tough. And like in the NBA, you have a lot more cameras than they use in the NBL. So they're watching and they're pretty spot on. And in the NBL hasn't got as many cameras. And now that guy on the screen has got to make a split decision for the head coach to make. It's a tough gig for that assistant coach. And normally they're a younger guy and lacking experience. It's a tough position that you don't want to really be put in.
Talking about coaches, Adam Ford, Aaron Baines incident earlier on in the week. We had John Riley fined as well in round 1. Both incidents where the NBL tried to keep it a bit secret. Media weren't allowed into the tribunal. The visions just got leaked by media for the Adam Ford incident. So, an Aaron Baines incident. What's your thoughts? Should everything be public? You've been in the NBA where everything seems to come out. Should everything be public, or would you like it, if you were coaching at the moment, for it to be kept hush-hush?
Yeah, it's your tribunal. Most of it should be kept in-house in the tribunal. I don't agree with one person on the panel. I think there's got to be at least 2, and then you've got the third to make a split decision if it's one way or the other way. I think it's tough with one to not have a different view. And, you know, the same with Baines and Ford. You probably had a different view of what came out. And I didn't agree with Stu Lash coming out before the tribunal and saying that about 40. I thought that should have got fined. You know, he should have got fined or suspended for coming out and saying that before the process is being fair. And it's gone through the process and they made the decision, and then films came out, so you get a different look at it, how it transpired. So I would like to see, and it's not how many tribunals are there a year?
Barely any.
Yeah, 1 or 2. So what's the difference if it's 3 or 1? You know, it's you put the guy in charge on a retainer, and you bring in 2 ex-coaches. I don't know, you bring in an ex-player, an ex-coach, someone that can have that perspective of what the coach is going through, what the player's going through, and then make a calculated decision. And maybe someone that hasn't played basketball at the elite level or played sport at the elite level. So, yeah, I'm a fan of having a little bit more open there. And it's what's get released. You don't know what's hidden under the. I would like to be a little bit more transparent of what's going on, And that's from experience and from sitting on the outside looking in.
Yeah, stuff certainly does. You talk about experience. You're doing a lot of talks, doing a lot of clinics this year, corporate stuff especially. Tell us a bit about them, and if people want a 5-time NBL championship winning coach to come and talk to them, how do they get in touch?
Yeah, well, you jump on the website, trevorgleeson.com, and it's kind of been snowballing since I've been back. It was not something I'm really been getting out there promoting, but, talk to executives with about leadership and teamwork, how they work. So I've just recently was in Broome with Richie's IGA, Retrovision and West Track and Eagers Automotive, and I've got one for Golf Management Australia on Friday. So, yeah, it's something that actually I'm really enjoying. I'm enjoying going through what's important for success. How do you sustain success after first winning? How do you maintain it? And putting the values and the behaviours in place, and how do you inspire? It's making me revisit and what's important. And so, yeah, I get to share a lot of those things with the executives and managers, corporations. I'm really enjoying it.
So trevorgleeson.com, that will be in the podcast description if you're listening and you're looking to find where it is, trevorgleeson.com. We'll make sure it's on the podcast description for Dribble all the time. So thank you very much for coming in. Really appreciate your time. We'll look forward to having more Trevor time throughout the season.
I enjoyed it. Thanks, Craig.